Okay, so this is ST Math graphing linear functions, and we're in the final circle of this lesson, circle 7, linear balloons graphing. And there are 6 levels here, all of them very similar. I'll just show you one in level 2 so you can get the gist of it. Basically, they're giving you these points. Remember that they use the purple balloons as points, and they want you to determine the equation of this line. So this space right here, the yellow space, would be for your slope. I know already that this slope is positive because as I read from left to right across the screen, the line is going up. So I need to figure out the distance between these points. You can count, you can definitely count the grid. So if we start down here, we go from -2, we go up 1, 2, 3, and then over 1. So the slope is 3 over 1, which would just be 3. And then this is for our y-intercept. So where does this line cross the y-axis? And it crosses right here at 1. So the equation of this line is y equals 3x plus 1. Okay, let me jump out and show you a more difficult one. Up here in level 6, they take away the grid. And this makes it a little bit difficult to count the slope in the way that we have been doing. But let me show you a little trick here. If you write down your points, and hold on, I'll write them down for you and then show you. That one's -3, -4. This one is -2, -3. There is always, in determining the slope, you can look at the difference between those 2 points. So I can see that in my x's, there's a difference of 1, and in my y's, there is a difference of 1. So my slope is going to be 1 over 1. And if I look at my graph, I can see that it's positive because this is going upwards. So I'll put a 1 there. And then in trying to determine where this thing is going to cross the y-axis, I actually just continue the pattern of points. This is one way to do it. And I know that when x is 0, right? When x is 0, that's going to be my y-intercept. So take a look at how I just continued those points. Let me get it lined up for you. Continued the pattern. And then I could see that 0 and -1 will be a point on this line. So the y-intercept is going to be -1. So I'll switch this to negative, put in a 1. Let me do one more of these for you since these are a little bit tricky. Okay, so this little guy, I'm going to write down my points. I have -1 and 3, and then I have a 1 and a -1. And I know that my slope is going to be negative, right? Okay, so let's look at my points that I wrote down here. What is the difference between the two x's? The difference between the two x's is going to be 2, right? And then the difference between my y's is actually 4, because if I go from 3 all the way to -1, that's 4 spaces. So I actually have 2 over 4. I'm sorry, 4 over 2, right? Because we do the y first, rise first. So 4 over 2, which is the same as just 2. And we know that it's negative because the line is going down. So my slope is going to be a -2. And if I'm trying to figure out where it's going to cross the y-axis, it's funny because this one actually is kind of in the middle, so I didn't leave enough space. But you can see that it looks like it's going to look like this, right? It's going to be 0. And then just looking at the pattern, can you figure out what that y is going to be? I noticed that there's 4 spaces between 3 and -1. So if I cut that in half and I just move 2 spaces, it would be 1. So my y-intercept is going to be 0 and 1. And so put that right here, 1. Let's see if we got that right. Oops, I forgot to put the -2. I told you guys, but I didn't put it. Okay, so let's do this again. Let's make the 2 negative. There it is, -2, and it crosses at 1. Try again. Ah, there we go.